gang, welcome back. I saw a post the other day that kind of led me down this rabbit hole. Then I started looking on the internet and found like this article. But anyway, what it was talking about was people who are hypersensitive or overly emotional. And as I was reading it, I was like, I kind of want to do a video on this that kind of incorporates my coming out story and a little bit of like insight into what initially led to me starting to drink a lot. And I want to start by saying that this is not meant to be like an excuse. I realize that my drinking came from just a habit that I let get out of control. So I'm not trying to blame this on any one particular thing or make it seem that I'm not taking responsibility for what I've done myself. But I did want to go over a couple of things just to kind of show people how I started. And this story isn't necessarily going to be for everyone. It's not meant to be step by step for everyone. This is just me personally, what I went through and how I handled it. So ever since I was little, like, I knew that I had these certain different feelings from other boys, but it was never anything that I gave any real attention to or a label, just because it wasn't necessary. I didn't feel like I had to do that until I started to get a little bit older and realized that, oh, there's a word for boys like me. And I started to realize that that's what being gay was. Like, I had this attraction and these different feelings toward other people, and that was not the standard. So I started kind of facing that internally when I was pretty young. But the more that I grew up, I just kind of let it fall back to kind of the back of my mind, or if at all, even up through middle school and high school. Like, I mean, the feelings, of course, were getting a little bit stronger, but it was still at this point always something that I thought that I would just be able to, live with. That it was going to be there, but it didn't have to affect me really in any way. And for the most part, like, it was always fine. Like, I mean, not even to say for the most part, but it was always fine. I never had a problem with it. No one ever gave me problems, like just feeling out of the ordinary or anything like that. I was never bullied or anything like that. But I was, getting back to this hypersensitivity, what I mean by that is not that like every little thing makes me cry, or seeing like a sad commercial like, oh my god, that's the saddest thing I've ever seen. And it's not really like that. But what it is was that I always had this I was always really aware of my feelings and my emotions, and at the same time what other people felt and thought, and like their emotions. I was always constantly in that space where I needed to know how not just myself but how everyone was responding to certain situations, and how I fit into that, which is selfish in a way, but it was also something that I couldn't control. I just always had to, I mean, you could see it kind of as people pleasing, but it wasn't necessarily that, because I wasn't always out to please everyone, but I did need to know kind of what other people were feeling and thinking, which has worked out for me well in my life. That's why I went into studying humanities and literature and things like that, and I feel like I have this I'm really in touch with people, and that's why I have such a soft spot for helping people, especially people who are still growing up. So it was a good way in that respect to grow up, but it was exhausting a lot of the time, and just having to feel like I had to monitor everything, and wanting to be like someone who people did want to be around. And ever since like middle school, I was that kid who I think a lot of people didn't necessarily like, but I was the one who was always in my teachers' classrooms before school started. Like, what can I do to help? Or just there to hang out. Even as far back as elementary school, I think I just spit on myself. Even as far back as elementary school, I was like grading papers for my teacher, grading papers for the teacher next door. I mean, it was a little ridiculous, but I would finish like doing my work or whatever, and then I would go turn it in up front at my teacher's desk and just stand there next to her. Just stand, like waiting for her to give me something to do. I mean, looking back on it, it's like this kid is ridiculous, but I mean, for me it was like this is what I love to do. On bathroom breaks, we would go out and I would stand with the teachers while the kids would all go to the bathroom. And like I had to be the one who like I respected the teachers, so I needed that back from them, and that was the way that I did it. And that, I think, is a good way to kind of explain the headspace that I was in forever, and even kind of now. But my emotional maturity didn't really start until like I was able to really notice what I was doing. So all through high school, like everything leading up to even to now, basically, I have always been the type of person who needs to know exactly what people are thinking and how they feel. And this was a reflection of me. Like, how was I helping to make this person feel? Or was I adding to a level of discomfort that someone's feeling? Or, like, what can I do to make this person feel most comfortable right now? So, like, I've always been the type who's not great at initially meeting people and leaving a lasting impression then. But if you just give me time, was all that I ever thought that I needed. Just give me time to figure out a situation or someone, and I can connect with these people. Like, I just need to figure out who they are and where do I fit into that, and I can make friends or connect with almost anybody. And that's kind of been true, but it has been exhausting. And it led to a lot of, like, right out of high school, like, these feelings were developing for other boys and then older guys into college. And I started to kind of resent that I couldn't openly show my affection or let it be known that I had this attraction. And that became really hard for me because I couldn't help but take everything so personally because I was super emotional and super sensitive to the way that other people saw me and what I felt that I deserved. Which again sounds selfish, but again, that's just how my mind works. I started to, the older that I got, like, well, especially to college, because there were so many different people and so many groups, and I mean, I was just like, wow, like there are so many people here, and this is incredible. Like, I love this. But at the same time, I could see all these people and I could have all these attractions, but I couldn't openly express that. And it started to just eat away at me that I was so limited in what I was able to do. So like I was involved with so many groups. Like, there was a party every weekend while I was going to college my freshman year. So I was constantly doing that all the way up through high school and everything. It was something that I knew was getting stronger, but at the same time I had enough friends and all of that around to get that satisfaction from, so it wasn't really that big of a deal. But as I got to college and it was a brand new situation, I was like, I mean, everything can start over here. Like, I don't need to necessarily put myself in a situation where I'm not ideally happy. So I got to college and every weekend was another party. But still, it was a little more accepted in college. Um, and it was growing acceptance everywhere, but I graduated like right before, like right around 2000, right before. So even that, in that 20 years, things have come such a long way. And even back then, like, it was acceptable, but it wasn't as easy to just openly be who you are. uh, so it was difficult. Like, I wasn't able to, and especially because of the type of guys that I was attracted to. Were not just some guy that I could go find at a club or something like that, but it was like just, people that I interacted with daily and just developed feelings for, that I see my other friends and other people in these situations, finding attraction with each other and building on that. And like, I have this too, but it's always something that I have to keep inside. And I really started to resent that. So every weekend I was just drinking because it would leave me open enough that I could voice my feelings, and it was okay. Like, I wasn't holding anything back, but at the same time it was also numbing that feeling of loneliness that was really starting to develop inside me. So it was doing two things for me. It was opening me up to these situations and making other people more accepting of them at the same time. And I was getting to escape how lonely I really was inside and how much that was building. And that has been the issue that I've struggled with ever since, even into adulthood. Like, the types of people that I'm attracted to are not necessarily people who are also attracted to me. And that still leaves a bit of resentment, not toward anyone in particular, but just the situation. Because in my head, I've never seen the need to label something so important. And I have discovered as I've gone on in adulthood that to a lot of people it doesn't matter if you have that intimacy or those private moments. It doesn't, like, you can get past that. But in public, when it goes further, it's a different situation. So there are things that I've been able to live in private that I haven't gotten to experience in public with people who I've wanted to. And so this whole time it's been, plus I was bartending and constantly around alcohol, so it was just so easy to numb all of that, while at the same time being this person who so many people were able to have fun with and I don't know, just like to be around until I got too drunk. Then I became a completely different person. But it all stems from the same thing. It was me basically trying to escape how lonely I really was while playing this charade and being someone who I didn't really want to be, but if I wanted to feel any of that satisfaction, or even be able to kind of feel like I was getting something in return that I was giving, then I had to I had to be drinking, and so did they. And then everything would be fine. Like, it would be a good night or a good day or a good weekend, but always I would go back home and just be lonelier than I even was before. So the drinking was just constantly, it was adding to the frustration and the loneliness, while it was also numbing it at the same time. So this became the way that I went from day to day in order to be happy and in order to escape the unhappiness. And it was never easy. It never has been. The only thing that makes it different is that I've learned to mature a little more emotionally. I still feel things beyond like what I can handle a lot of the time. So it is exhausting. And I think it will always be that way. But the more that I'm able to recognize it and know that I can find satisfaction in other things, and I mean, granted, it's different type of satisfaction and different types of love from my closest friends and my family, but there's still something that's missing. And I've learned that I can deal with that by reading about other people who have been in this situation and watching videos of people who can talk about it. And even now, like, there are just little things that I am leaving out but deserve to be left out, I think. But I am working on it, and I just have to hope that one day I'll get past it, or find some way to totally deal with it, because I haven't had a desire to drink in a long time, and that right now overrules everything else, but it doesn't really make it any easier. If anything, I just have to deal with all of this completely sober, which makes it harder. But in the end, it will all be worth it. So, on that note, take care of yourselves, and I'll talk to you later.